Well, we're going to do something just a little bit different this morning. We have basically zero news of any kind about Tesla. And I mean, I have searched long and far and hard and wide, and I don't want to just bring you something just to bring you something. So I'm going to be talking about the economy right now. And you know my position on the economy. If you follow this channel, you know that I believe that we're already in recession. If we're not in recession, we're going into recession. I could be right, I could be wrong. We're close to recession. I think no matter even, you know, the most optimistic about the economy folks would say we're close to recession, but I see headline after headline after headline suggesting that we are already there or very close to going in. So let's just talk about a couple of the articles. Let's see, the S&P, this is I keep forgetting to write down where these came from, but the S&P 500 index is nearing its record high, with the Magnificent Seven no longer driving its gains. So what is going on throughout 2023 and 2024? The S&P 500 was propelled by the AI-fueled rally of the Magnificent Seven stocks, with NVIDIA alone accounting for over 30% of the S&P's 500 growth in 2024. However, since mid-July, these same companies have become drags on the index. Investors are now wary of the lofty projections given by management in AI, despite otherwise strong earnings report for the Magnificent Seven companies. Within the S&P 500, real estate, utilities, and financials now contribute more to index growth, as these sectors are particularly sensitive to interest rates, and investors are expecting Jerome Powell to begin cutting rates, of course, later this year. So what this article is saying in a couple different parts here is, number one, that the S&P 500 has been driven by the Magnificent Seven. They're suggesting that a rotation started in mid-July, which of course I'd called for a little early, but I still called for it. They're suggesting that rotation will continue as interest rates come down, because the smaller cap companies are more interest rate sensitive, especially the stocks, and their valuations are more sensitive to these interest rate devaluations declines compared to the big cap stocks. So these are some of the things that of course, the other part of the article is talking about which specific categories, real estate, utilities, and financials, which will be most likely to be benefiting from these changes. All right, let me pull up a couple of things here on the screen. Okay, next I want to show you this report. This is from Bloomberg. It's from Rosenberg Research that Bloomberg is reporting. It was in Business Insider. And this is a list of a bunch of different methods for determining if we are in or headed towards recession. The report this morning was referring to the fact that about 43% of these recession indicators are now showing that we are in or heading toward recession. So I'm not going to go down these one by one. You can take a screenshot if you want and take a look at the details, but let's just take a look here. A couple of things. The consumer, I'm sorry, we have the present situation index right now. That is indicating recession. The total year-over-year change greater than 15 it's 15 points down, 19.4 negative. All right, then you got the leading economic indicators that we've been talking about on the show a lot. That is down 4.8, and that would also be showing a directionality that we're headed towards recession. Then you got the Chicago Fed looking okay. Then you go into manufacturing. Interestingly, all the manufacturing data is not yet to the point of showing recession, even though they're down. In many cases, they're not down enough, according to this particular person's analysis, not down enough to show we're going into recession. And yet this is what people talk about in terms of being the drag on the economy is the manufacturing sector. But you see all of these get ends for no, not yet in recession. Transportation, same situation. The trucking industry will tell you they've been in recession for 2 years, and yet this is not, well, maybe that's it. I hadn't thought of that until this minute. Maybe what's basically showing here is that manufacturing, according to the manufacturers themselves, have been in recessionary territory for 2 years. It isn't getting worse. So maybe we always got to think about it in terms of year over year or month over month. So it's not getting worse. So maybe that's kind of what's the point here. And that would also be true for transportation, which has been in recession for 2 years, not getting worse. All right, that's a possibility. But then we get to employment. So the employment numbers are definitely showing mostly yes signals. We have decreasing job growth for full employment. Temporary services also negative. And then you've got initial claims as the one area that's staying steady. You've got the Sahm rule. We've talked a lot about the Sahm rule. So that is a yes, definitely a yes. Then you got the Michel, can't even pronounce either one of those. 𝐓𝐮𝐞𝐬𝐝𝐚𝐲 recession indicator. Do not know what that is. I'm just going to report it here as a yes. Decline in wholesale retail rates. Yes, we've got retail sales rather. Both of those are showing that it's negative compared to a year ago. So that is a yes. You've got the inverted yield curve. We talk about that twice a day, every day. That is a yes. And then you've got somebody's augmented yield curve also giving the signal yes. And then the University of Michigan's consumer sentiment is a no, but the consumer confidence would definitely, I think, be showing yes. But they're not using that one. So this is this particular person's listing. They're saying that 43%, I believe it. This is Rosenberg saying 43% of his indicators are showing that we're heading into a recession. And that is the basis upon which he's making the claim that we are headed that way. So next, I want to show you the inflation numbers. So, I've kind of given up on Trueflation as any way of doing any good analysis of how things are going. But if you take a look at Trueflation, this would be a definite indicator that we are in or going into recession. If you have deflation or trending towards deflation, you're well under the 2% level that the board is talking about, that the Federal Reserve wants to get to. We are now, according to Trueflation, we're down to, just a second, I have to be able, here we go, down to a 1.22% Trueflation rate. That's the overall rate. And you can see the dramatic decrease from just a few months ago, where we were in May of this year at 2.31, dropping all the way down to 1.22. Here we go, 1.22, a big drop recently here. Now, again, but this is interesting that it is after the first. So this would reflect any changes they would have made on the first. That's where they're showing right now. Now, I want to take a look at these by detail. So let's take a look here. First of all, food and alcohol and non-alcoholic beverages. You'll see that this, though, is so interesting. You've seen that this bottomed out over here, all right, with a negative number, but now we're back into positive territory, back up to 1.58 for the total of that group. Now, what is happening here with this reinflation taking place in food? Something to pay attention to. What is going on with that? Assuming we can believe anything that is in Trueflation. Let's go on to housing next. Now we know housing. We know that, the residential homes. So let's take a look at these by detail. You've got other lodging. So they've been showing other lodging pretty negative all year. They're showing other lodging right now. This would be, things like Airbnb, hotels, etc., down 2.78 compared to a year ago. Now you go into rented dwellings, showing negative 0.08 for rented dwellings. Now this has been all over the place during the course of the year, but they were one of the ones that was showing it at only 1% all year, even as the Fed was not showing that. Yet housing total at just 1% increase. But when you get into owned dwellings, you're looking at 1.24. How do they come up with 1.24 for owned dwellings when we're showing every single study that I'm showing a 6% year over year? earlier in the year, they were showing the 6%. You can see just a few months ago, 6%, but they've dropped that all the way down to this low number, 1.24 as of yesterday or a couple of days ago. This should be showing, I guess that's the best number they got is August 30th. Okay, so that is pretty wild that they're showing that much of a drop in housing prices, but I'm not seeing that anywhere else. Okay, so let's go on to, after housing, we get into transport. Now, we all follow transport pretty carefully. We know used car prices have been coming down. So what do we got here? We've got gasoline. We know that's down, but wow, they're showing, look at the drop. Okay, all the way from a -3.6 year over year, all the way down to a -10% year over year. Then we've got vehicle purchases down 1.96. I think new car prices are probably, and truck probably. Transport total, though, showing 1.56 because public transportation is still up, but I don't know how they're getting. It's a very odd thing. Look here, we got 1.99 transport total, and yet none of the pieces add up. So all the pieces are under that, and yet the total is 1.56. Yeah, I'm just not sure how they're getting to these numbers. Sorry. So let's go on to utilities. According to them, utilities are sitting about in the middle of their category. But again, if we look at electricity, up 2%, where natural gas all year has been down 1.56, they're saying right now. So this would be right in the middle of where they're saying the inflation is right now, a little bit higher, but close to the middle of their idea of where things are. Health, this was expected to go up this year. They're still showing it up. They're showing it up at 2.84. So this is not contributing to the good news, and it's steadily going up higher and higher. Okay, let's take a look at the next one here. We've got household durables. So these would be the things that the durables category has been under a lot of pressure. You see a tremendous drop in the value and the prices of durables all the way down here to currently basically flat year over year. So what you would have paid for a refrigerator a year ago, that's what you would pay now. So that is making a big contribution to this negative or this trend towards very low inflation. Alcohol and tobacco, once again, a very dramatic recent drop, showing all the way down for alcoholic beverages, negative year over year. The grand total still at 2% because tobacco products are still going up 4.29 year over year. So those who are buying tobacco products think that things are really still really bad out there. But we can see the overall trend of the category was going down, a big jump because of alcoholic beverages, but then that fell off completely. Don't know, have no indication, nothing I'm hearing. Is any of this makes sense to you? I'd love to hear your comments about any of this. What are you seeing in the marketplace for any of this? Clothing showing a dramatic drop to -2%. It has been fairly much under control all year, but showing a very, very substantial drop over a very short period of time. So now you got clothing and food. Food showing an increase over the last few weeks. Why would there be a big increase in food over the last few weeks? Why would there be a big drop off like this in clothing? Again, I'd love to hear your comments. Are you seeing any of this in the marketplace? Communications, a fairly small category. Communications still sitting overall average, almost zero after being negative. So that is coming back up again after being negative. That residential phone service, VoIP, phone cards, etc., a big part of that. Okay, what about the next one here? We get into, whoops, I went too far. We have got education. Education dropping, and dropping in the general down to 1.48 year over year. And this would be for the subcategory as well. The subcategory is also called education. I don't know how they differentiate here, but overall getting down into the middle of the category after being way up at 4% earlier this year. Are you feeling that? Is that happening to you? Culture and recreation, this has been coming down according to them, down to under 1% on culture and recreation, and just dropping all year long from where it was around 3.73 earlier this year. Is that a reflection that you're seeing out there? And then finally, the other category, which is made up of personal care, is a lot of it. And they're showing that still at 3% for personal care, down from in the 6% range over the year. So I wanted to bring you that. As you know, I've lost faith in Trueflation. I'm curious to know, did any of those, I mean, we can't look at your specific situation and know what's happening nationwide or know what's happening to somebody else who buys slightly different things than you do. But I just like to know in the comments below, does that any of that make sense to you? If it's true, if inflation has come down and is coming down at that rate, typically that would suggest to us that we're headed for recession or we're already in recession. And that would look like we're going towards deflation if we continue along some of those trend lines. And this tends to be, as you know, tends to be reinforcing. So as you get more deflation, people start going, oh, prices are coming down, I'm going to wait. That means they wait. And since they wait, there's less, less activity, less manufacturing and services activity, because people are not going out and getting the items that they would have gotten otherwise, or are taking on the services that they would have taken otherwise. So that becomes a vicious circle. And that could be what's going on right now. Let me just let you know that Brian White and I will be doing a couple of videos later today. One of those will be on today, one of them tomorrow. And then I will do what we normally do on Sunday night. Will be on Monday night. I will be giving you a snapshot of all next week's activity, the things that are going to be hitting. We do have, of course, the jobs report at the end of the week. So I'll be talking about all of those and exactly how those appear in terms of what people are expecting to happen, how that might impact the markets, how those might impact Tesla, etc. I think that Brian and I might be talking about 1010 today. I know that that's on his mind. But anyway, you might want to check that out. In the meantime, hit like, hit subscribe, hit notify. And then, of course, you could always join Patreon. That would be fantastic. And it has been great talking to you.